So first question, Chris, if you want to address this, can you edit your company information on the Google Knowledge Card?
Can you hear me? Is this on? Okay. Yes, you can. So it pulls from your Google local page, and you can also do it through structured data markup, as I was discussing earlier. So Google starts to pick up on some of those things, but I would definitely be looking at your Google local page and edit the information there.
Okay, awesome. And then, Chris, you can start with this one, and then if anybody also wants to add in, what can someone do today to capitalize on keyword-based searches? So leaving here today, what can they do?
To capitalize on keyword-based searches? So I would understand through kind of a market share analysis and take a look at, what's your opportunity that's out there. Pull all of that content together, or all those keywords together, and really start to understand, how difficult and how much time you think it's going to take for particular keyword-based searches, and then start to understand where you can create content on your website, how can you structure that content on your website, and then using a little bit of structured markup where it makes sense to start to help to elevate and become more and more visible for those particular keywords. So a little bit of a broad question. Yeah. I'm not sure if I answered it quite right, but.
And are you available for hire for people to do that through Versique? Is that something you offer?
Absolutely. I have plenty of cards here.
You set that up for a plug. That was
Thank
your
you,
own
Deanna.
question.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Did. We know it.
Well, and Holly, I got one for you. So you suggest looking at what time people are engaging in your content. However, doesn't Facebook choose when the content is distributed? For example, we publish something at 10 a.m., but it doesn't show up in our customers' news feed until 11 a.m.
They don't, actually. So part of how the algorithm works is that it's going to push out directly when you push it to a certain percentage of your fan base. Now, the algorithm has changed a few times since then, but what used to happen is if a certain percentage of your fan base that got the individual piece of content engaged with it, liked, comment, shared, they would feed it to more people that are fans of your page, and it would kind of go so on and so forth. Now, the algorithm technically doesn't do that anymore. That said, you can easily break the algorithm with really good content. So if your content is really strong, it will go out at the time that you push it, but you need to make sure that there is a purpose behind it, and that you get the set of eyes that get it right away will take an action with it, which will feed it to the other people. And when it feeds it to the other people, it will show the timestamp on it that is at the time in which you actually published it.
So how many of those do you actually boost posts based on that, since Google or since Facebook chokes them down?
Yep,
Is there
so
a percentage
part
that
of
you
what's
do,
going
or?
on with Facebook is that they are trying to get more people to pay for certain types of ads. So they want you to boost posts. Our example on that is a little different. So at Polaris, our content is strong enough that we actually don't boost very many posts. It's very rare that we do, because what we see is that we get a lot of eyeballs, but we don't get a lot of engagement. So for us, an eyeball is no good if they didn't take an action on it. So if you saw a piece of content and you sort of passively looked at it, but it didn't inspire you to like or comment or share or click or watch, then that's a miss for us. So that said, 90% of companies right now are boosting posts, but likely you will see similar response, that you'll get a lot of eyeballs, but you won't get any extra engagement. And that becomes a measure of thinking about what you want the content to do. So if you want people to just see it or feel like they saw it, boost away, because you can do it with small businesses, very little dollars. If you want somebody to take an action, just be careful that they maybe won't, because they do see sponsored on the piece of content, and that does hinder people to do something further with it.
Holly, I have a follow-up question that just came in. Is there a suggested number of times to post each week?
It depends on where you're talking about. So if you are talking about Twitter or Instagram or Tumblr, post away. You literally can't post enough. You could post all day long and it would be fine. People will engage with it, they'll like it, it'll be really well received. Have at it. Go nuts. If it's Facebook. So if we're talking, that would be Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, any place like that, you can post. That's how those different places work, so it's fine. Facebook, however, you need to be much more careful. So part of the Facebook algorithm is that it will hinder your ability to reach your fans if you're pushing content that's getting no engagement. So if you push 12 posts a day and you get 1 like between them, guess what? You're not going to be able to reach your fans because it's a bad experience for the people that are liking your page. You're not giving them something valuable. That's a bad experience on Facebook. And so they're trying to hinder that, which is similar to how Google kind of operates as it relates to sponsored search, where you can't just buy on any keyword. You have to buy on things that are relevant, or you have to pay really a large amount. So with Facebook, what we found is that we can get away with about 4 a day, but they have to be spread really far apart, and you have to be really thoughtful about what you put where. So a lot of times on events, we'll do 3. We'll do a really strong post in the morning. We'll do something in the afternoon that's sort of a middle type engagement where we might get some numbers, and then we'll do our strongest piece at the end of the night because we'll know that that'll trickle throughout the night in terms of the engagement that it gets. We don't have to be super worried about watching it, and then we'll wake up in the morning and be in a spot where we can kind of repeat.
Awesome. I have a question for Dan, and then we'll open it up real quick to the audience to see if there's any live questions. Dan, I often find that responsive design is used as a quick fix and done poorly. Are you witnessing a move towards RESS?
Yeah, I guess it depends. There is a lot of, well, with anything, there's a lot of bad websites and there's a lot of bad responsive websites as well. I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. I mean, for us as a company, we do every website in the last few years has been mobile responsive. So that's still how we're handling everything. Again, it really comes down to having that plan in place. It's very easy to do things on the cheap and to design a website that's based for a desktop usage and then just have a developer do it on their own to break it down. You know, that works, but again, it's you still need to plan out how everything's going to break down and what content's more relevant than others, and not leave that up to the developer. It should be structured all the way through. So, my guess is that, you know, it is still very important because we're still doing it and we see it's working very well. So it really comes down to the planning on that.
Awesome. Without staff dedicated, so you guys listen to this and you can all chime in. Without staff dedicated to content creation, how can a small business establish a relevant social media presence?
I'll take that one, or I'll start with it. So, as many of you are probably aware, Polaris sells their products through dealerships. Those dealerships are independent businesses, and they are at a huge range of their ability of what they can do. So sometimes a dealership will literally have 2 employees the entire day. They've got somebody in the front that's answering the phone, that's doing the sales, that's handling, you know, the setup of the machines, and they've got somebody working service. And that person is responsible likely for social media as well. So it's a really difficult thing. So what you need to do is you need to engage the rest of your business and the rest of your resources to make content for you. So we talked a little bit about this on one of those slides. It's like, look to history, look to, you know, other places you can follow that are partners where you can share things. Find spaces that talk about things that you talk about, and simply share their content or retweet them. Also, don't think that every piece of content has to be shot in a studio, has to be, you know, processed via a videographer. Content is literally everywhere. It's everywhere. The amount of photos that we take and we are a large organization on cell phones is remarkable. Because if you have a mix, it doesn't really matter. So think about how other people can help you get content. Think about places you already have content. And then the biggest piece there is planning. Plan for it. Because what happens is you look at that Facebook page and you're like, I'm supposed to post something on Facebook today. And then you sit there for an hour.
Right.
So if you plan, you won't be in that position.
Yeah, and I would be thinking about, you know, what is it? What is all the types of content that you have there, and what is it that you don't have out there on the web? You know, one thing that we did, and you know, we have a team of people who, you know, create a lot of content. We're pushing out a lot of blog posts, but you know, we have something that's kind of unique that's going on here now that, you know, we spent some time on, and we're creating salary guides for all the different practice areas that we have out there. That's an easy channel. It's something that's interesting to those people that, you know, need a job. Right. So, you know, we created that piece of content. We use social media as a channel to distribute that content. and then we get, we see results that come back as a result. To coincide with, some of the things that Holly was saying about curating content, finding out what things, people are interested in, I would be thinking about a little bit of a larger idea or something that is going to help engage your audience and something that's going to be beneficial and useful to them.
What are free or low-cost tools to use and to help us determine what marketing tools are relevant to our business? So free and low-cost tools to help determine what marketing tools are relevant.
Tools to help understand what tools to use?
So
I would say everybody
Google.
needs to have Google Analytics.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Google Webmaster Tools, Google Trends. There's a lot of information you can find there. One thing we didn't talk a lot about is the whole search engine optimization to social optimization side of things. So as it relates to keywords, which we spoke a lot about, those tools, all of the Google tools can give you a really good understanding of what trends are happening, what's happening on your website, what words people are using. Implement that into your social as well. Because if people are talking about it in searches, they're likely relating that back to your product in general, so you can place it there too. And all of that could be found from free Google tools.
And I would say, absolutely keywords, and, especially when you're talking about social media pieces, as you're creating content, a lot of times your website is where that content resides. So thinking about the keywords that go into that content, and then once you distribute it out there through social channels, it's not only going to get picked up by people engaging with it through social, but it's going to come through back on search too.
Dan, you look like you're gonna.
No, yeah, it was the same. I'd say there's a lot of Google Analytics to be used out there. There's also, depending if your site's built in WordPress, there's a lot of free plugins that you can utilize out there that can help with a lot of different aspects with that as well. So again, you can't get specific with that now without knowing, but there's a lot of tools, free tools out there.
Yeah, looking at lots of different tools as opposed to, let's just say, taking a look at Google Analytics, setting it up so you're understanding what is actually taking place there can be much more valuable than trying to look at a whole set of tools.
Yeah, I'd say, first off, I wouldn't go looking for tools until you figure out what it is that you're trying to accomplish, because otherwise you'll spin your wheels searching for something that you'll think is the silver bullet or the answer to figure out what you need, and that's not going to help. You need to know, you need to have your plan in place before you start looking for those things, so that'll help narrow down what you're looking for.
Hey, Sarah, can you run up front? We have Bettina at the front who has a live question. Thanks, Bettina.
Just as a follow-up on that question and the responses you gave, which was great, how would you suggest small businesses go about kind of analyzing their competitors? What might be some of the key places you direct folks to sort of look first to do the sleuthing to understand?
So from a search standpoint, the first place we always go, we use a tool called SEMrush. It helps us to understand and gauge how many people are visiting a competitor's website. It also gives you a pretty good snippet of the types of keywords that are driving traffic to that website. You can also see the paid keywords that they're using. So, hypothetically, if they're using paid keywords, they're using them for a purpose, and they should be good keywords to help identify what's
Sticking
going on
with
there.
kind of the Facebook example that we've used a bunch of times. So in the back end of a Facebook fan page, you can actually place in companies to watch, and it will load in the information that's coming from the competitors' pages, and it will tell you how much engagement they're getting, how many posts that they're doing, what they're doing. So you don't have to go do it by hand. It gives you kind of a ratio to work with, and then it'll give you a comparative of how you're performing.
Yeah, and for us, it's the same. We definitely need to look at analytics to find out what other companies are doing. The other thing that we would do looking at it is we would look at your competitors and find out what their messaging is, what they're talking about, and try to figure out what their main drive is, and then find out a position for your content to be in a space where they're not.
Awesome, thank you. And Sarah, we have a question over here.
Yeah, I have a question. I don't mean to be naive, but what is the difference between Chris and Dan? Sometimes as a small business owner, it's hard to know who do I need help with and what do they help do. So,
Awesome question.
Both.
So Dan creates websites so they look beautiful to people. I work to drive traffic to the websites. So two different things, right? So you can create a website, you can make it look great, but if you don't have a plan in place to drive traffic to that website, maybe you should have spent your money somewhere else.
Yeah. No, you really do need both.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's kind of like, we always kind of joke around. It's like producing the best billboard in the world way out in the desert where nobody will see it.
Right.
You need to build a highway to get people to it, to see it.
And the two of you are actually working together right now on exactly that. So the Versique website.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. That was a great question. Love that question. Okay, I think we're coming down to last question. So what book would you recommend to learn more? What book would you, what are some books or research, where would you send people to go learn more?
Should we keep it in a theme, social search
Theme?
web theme?
Go for it.
Okay.
Broaden it. We'll just.
I think one of the greatest books that I've ever read is called Search Marketing in the Age of Google, because it helps to understand, really how Google is a phenomenal market research tool, and you can find out so much information about your customers, the different products, different ways that they're looking for your products, innovations you can come up and add to your products based on what users are searching for. At the same time, it talks a lot about how, search itself is an ends to a mean. People have a problem, and when people use a search engine, they drive traffic to your website, and why and how you can use that.
So keeping in that theme with Google too, has anyone in here ever read Zero Moment of Truth? Zero Moment of Truth is a free book from Google. It's like 40 pages. You can read it really fast. It's a little bit older, but it helps you understand how people's purchase decisions have changed. And so it used to be about, the first moment of truth when they would see or they would touch a product or they would enter a clinic, and it's not anymore. It's about the digital experience. So it gives you a really good understanding with great examples, and it's free. You can read it in like an hour.
Yeah, I was going to say that same book.
Oh, look at that.
Because it works really well it's across the board. It explains a lot and is very, very helpful, and it's free. I guess other than that, I kind of always go back to the book, The Tipping Point. It's been around a while, but I think it's still very relevant, talking about, at that point where, a lot kind of similar to the Google book about, kind of building brand ambassadors and finding out who the key people in your audience that actually are difference makers that are helping tipping people towards your product or your brand.
We haven't talked at all about Amazon as a search engine either. So a really good idea there is to go into Amazon, utilize the book name that Chris gave, the book name that Dan gave, see what other people bought.
Interesting.
Look for reviews, go off that.
The book I mentioned was written by Vanessa Fox.
Tipping Point's Malcolm Gladwell.
Yep.
He's written a lot, and they're all really good.
Awesome. Kelly, you want to close this out with a very last question?
So my name's Kelly. Is this? Yes, this
No.
is on. I also work at Versique. I work very closely with Chris, and a lot of the places that I've worked at, I've been kind of the only marketer coming in. This is different now, but one of the resources that I've found to be most helpful is HubSpot. They sell their own tool. It's a marketing automation platform, but they have a website. And they publish 5-6 articles a day, and that's the easiest way to go into what do I need to know about SEO? How do I get started with an editorial calendar for blogging or social? And so just a tip. That's been a very helpful resource. And it's free.
Awesome. And people should follow you, Kelly, because you've done an amazing job for Versique as well. So, yeah. Tamara, are you going to close us out? You want me to close it out? Awesome. So we'd like to thank all of our panelists. Way to go. That was great information.